This autocannon was designed in 1934. 90 years later, it is still mounted on the most advanced combat platforms on Earth. Every decade since World War II, someone declared it obsolete. Jets would kill it. Missiles would replace it. Precision munitions would bury it. None of them did. The Bofors 40mm is still here, and the reason says more about modern warfare than any weapon built to replace it. The story really begins in a Swedish workshop in Karlskoga, 1934, with a set of blueprints and a problem no one else had solved. The Swedish Navy wanted a gun that could fit on submarines and small ships, fire fast enough to catch a diving plane, and survive the brutal conditions of the Baltic. The job landed on Emanuel Jansson's desk, a chief engineer more at home with a slide rule than with military dogma. Jansson's answer was not a brute force cannon, but a 60 caliber barrel, a gas-operated action, and a clip feed system that let crews reload in seconds. His patent drawings, filed as SE 27423A, show the signature 4-round clip and a water-cooled recuperator, ideas lifted straight from a decade of tinkering with naval prototypes. The workshop notes from Karlskoga are blunt: keep it light, keep it simple, make it run even when the North Sea tries to freeze it solid. Early test reports logged a rate of fire at 120 rounds per minute, a muzzle velocity breaking 800 meters per second, and a barrel life that shrugged off thousands of shots. Reliability was not a slogan. It was measured in how many times the mechanism failed under ice, salt, and mud. The original technical sheets, B4003, detail how the breech block and feed trays could be stripped and reassembled by a sailor with frozen hands. Jansson's dual clip feed was not just clever, it was the reason the gun could keep firing when others jammed. By the time the first prototype was bolted to the deck of HMS Sjöbjörnen, the Bofors 40mm was already showing the roots of an engineering paradox. A weapon built for reliability, not glory, that would outlive the fancier, more expensive systems that followed. The real surprise was not that it worked, but that it kept working year after year as the world kept changing around it. Mass production didn't just happen, it exploded. War production board ledgers logged more than 8,000 guns delivered to the United States Armed Forces by 1945, with nearly 900 million rounds of ammunition produced in American factories. That's not a typo. 900 million. At its peak, a single plant in Indiana was stamping out enough 40mm shells per week to equip an entire cruiser division. But credibility isn't measured in production numbers alone. The true test came in the chaos of battle. Action reports from the Pacific are blunt. On destroyers, cruisers, and landing craft, the Bofors became the last line of defense against everything from low-flying torpedo bombers to kamikaze pilots. Nowhere was this more brutally demonstrated than aboard the USS Laffey during the Okinawa campaign. On April 16, 1945, the USS Laffey faced 22 kamikaze attacks in just 80 minutes. Her Bofors crews fired over 2,500 rounds, downing 3 aircraft outright and breaking up 4 more attacks before impact. The ship's after-action log credits the 40mm relentless rate of fire, and not some futuristic miracle weapon for keeping her afloat. As one Laffey gunner later put it, "We just kept feeding those clips and pulling the trigger. The gun never quit, so neither did we." By war's end, the Bofors had accounted for the majority of Allied medium-caliber anti-aircraft fire. It wasn't just another gun in the inventory. It was the backbone of shipboard and ground-based air defense. When the shooting stopped, there were warehouses filled with guns, mountains of leftover ammo, and a hard-earned reputation for lethality that no procurement committee could ignore. The Bofors had survived its trial by fire, and the world was now stuck with a weapon that simply refused to become obsolete. Jet engines didn't just raise the speed limit, they rewrote it. By the late 1940s, the original Bofors L-60 was outpaced by aircraft that could cross a gunner's field of fire in seconds. The experts lined up to write the obituary, saying autocannons had finally met their match. Bofors' answer was to throw out the old playbook and build the L-70, a weapon designed to catch jets that most guns couldn't even track. The barrels stretched to 70 calibers, giving the new 40 by 365mm R round a muzzle velocity of over 1,000 meters per second. The cyclic rate didn't creep up. It nearly tripled, hitting 330 rounds per minute. Suddenly, the gun could spit out a shell every 0.18 seconds, fast enough to put a wall of steel in front of a MiG before it could blink. But the real trick wasn't just speed. The L-70's new proximity-fused shells meant a near miss could still bring down a target, a small miracle in the age of supersonic passes. NATO's 1953 standardization made the L-70 a fixture from Canada to Turkey. Korean War after-action reports credit the upgraded Bofors with confirmed jet kills. Datasheets from Aberdeen Proving Ground read like a dare. Rate of fire, 330 rounds per minute. Traverse speed, 92 degrees per second. Time to first shot, under half a second. For all the talk of obsolescence, the L-70 didn't just survive the jet age. It outperformed the first generation of guided missiles in real-world engagements. The death sentence was delivered. The Bofors just refused to die. Missile advocates in the 1960s and the 1970s promised a future without gunners, just radar switches and expensive guarantees. But combat reports from Vietnam to the Gulf War revealed a stubborn flaw. Missiles were too slow for the real world. 4 seconds for radar lock, 2.5 seconds for a man-portable air defense system to respond, and by then, the threat had already struck. Kill rates in live combat were disappointing. A systems engineer watching a 1982 test put it plainly. By the time we see the target, it is already gone. Then came the Shilka. The Soviet ZSU-23-4, with its 4 23mm cannons and radar, could lock and fire in under 0.2 of a second. In 1973, Israeli pilots found out the hard way. Shilkas did not wait for computers. They fired 3,800 rounds a minute, and low-flying aircraft paid the price. Egyptian crews along the Suez Canal used Shilkas to claim a third of Israeli air losses. NATO, heavily invested in missile doctrine, was forced to reconsider. Today, digital fire control suites, Trinity in the US and UTAS in Sweden, deliver that same engagement in less than 0.2 of a second, now with programmable airburst and tracking. As one procurement officer noted, for the price of one missile, I can buy enough 40mm rounds to defend a brigade for a week. When seconds count, speed and simplicity still win. The gun refuses to retire. Infantry fighting vehicles are supposed to be showcases for the latest and greatest, thermal sights, remote turrets, and of course whatever cannon the procurement office is obsessed with this decade. Yet when Sweden's CV-90 rolled out in the early 1990s, the team did not go for a sci-fi railgun or a boutique missile pod. They picked a 40mm autocannon, a direct descendant of the Bofors lineage. The CV-90 program manager, who still keeps a battered shell on his desk, points to the numbers. The 40mm punches through 150mm of rolled steel at 1,000 meters, outclassing most 25mm and 30mm rivals. It fires programmable airburst rounds, imagine shrapnel clouds, that can shred infantry behind cover or drone swarms overhead. And thanks to cased telescoped ammunition, the new CT-40 variant manages to cram 30% more rounds into the same turret volume, with each shell shorter and lighter than its brass-cased ancestors. Contrast this with the US Bradley, still lugging a 25mm chain gun that struggles against modern armor and cannot touch the latest airburst tricks. The CT-40 lead engineer, a man who has watched more PowerPoint presentations on next-generation weapons than he cares to admit, spells it out. You get a bigger bang, more flexibility, and you do not need to redesign the whole vehicle. For all the digital wizardry packed into today's infantry fighting vehicles, the logic is brutally simple. A 40mm shell is still the best way to solve problems that missiles miss or budgets cannot stomach. The result? The caliber that everyone said was too old for the job just keeps finding new jobs. And the platforms that bet on complexity keep getting outlived by a gun most armies thought they had retired decades ago. A Ukrainian air defense operator stares at his screen, the incoming swarm already visible as a haze of blinking dots. He does not reach for a missile. Instead, his crew loads another belt of 40mm, flips the selector to airburst, and starts firing. The targets are not jets or helicopters, they are $400 drones packed with explosives, coming in dozens at a time. In a war where a $40,000 Stinger can only buy you one shot, and a single Shahed drone costs less than a family sedan, the economics get ugly fast. Ukrainian procurement logs show that a single Bofors-equipped vehicle can burn through 3,000 rounds a month, knocking down up to 150 drones for less than the price of 2 Western missiles. A procurement officer running the numbers in a bunker outside Kiev puts it bluntly. He says, "I can spend $1 million on a handful of missiles, or I can buy enough 40mm to hold this sector for a month." The math is not subtle. Each 40mm round costs about $120. Each Stinger missile costs $38,000. A new Iris-T costs north of $400,000. The Bofors does not care if its target is made of plywood and lithium or titanium and jet fuel. A hit is a hit, and the cost per kill is measured in lunch money, not luxury sedans. Drone warfare was supposed to be the death knell for old guns. Instead, it has made the Bofors indispensable again. In a world where threats are cheap, fast, and endless, the only thing more dangerous than running out of ammunition is running out of budget. The Bofors answers both problems with the same solution: keep firing, keep it simple, and let the accountants sleep at night. Today, militaries still buy Bofors 40mm cannons because no missile, drone, or budget sheet has outlasted a tool that simply works. In a world obsessed with the next big thing, maybe the real defense miracle is a century-old gun that keeps embarrassing its expensive replacements. Some problems never change.